Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. For some reason, I am having some technical difficulties. I certainly hope this call is going through, but at this point, the only thing I can do is proceed and hope for the best, especially since we've got so much good news to report for today. The prerequisite for the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar for months has been described as something that will only come to fruition after Iraq, and for that matter, most of the Middle East, we've arrived at a period of security and stability. While we're not quite there yet, we're very, very close to achieving that objective. The poison pill in this formula remains Iran, but for those of you that are even casually watching the news, you can see that Iran is in a world of hurt, fortunately or unfortunately of their own making. I'm referring to President Trump, the administration, and what they're doing. In country in Iraq, of course, President Trump has sent his envoy, Mark Zavia, to work directly with the CBI and the reforms necessary in order to facilitate the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. But Trump's also working very hard, almost alone, with almost no assistance from coalition forces, to neutralize the regional threat, which is, of course, Iran. Iran, for those of us that have had currencies for 10, 15, even 20 years, Iran has been one of the problems. Threats against Iraq, threats against the United States, threats against the unbelievers, the buildup of their conventional and nuclear weaponry. But I'm happy to state that in the last approximately 2 weeks, just about everything Iran has done to create their plausible threat has been taken from them. Their nuclear program is gone. Now, they can certainly try to reinstitute it, but they know that the United States has the technical ability and the will to destroy it. Their Air Force is gone. Their Navy is gone. Their drones are substantially reduced, and their infrastructure, in terms of assisting with the military and all aspects of it, is being rapidly destroyed. You can turn the TV on, watch for yourself. It looks like a video game. The other issue is, with stability, more of a global issue. I'm quite sure that Russia and China are talking to one another and quite alarmed at the technical capabilities of the United States. And we know that they were unaware of just the capabilities of the United States for the simple reason that even our allies were unaware of that. So much so that President Trump's having difficulty getting them to assist in the Persian Gulf and the general area. And their argument basically is, well, you guys got this thing under control. You don't really need us. So on the one hand, it's a little bit irritating that we've been asked to go this alone, but on the other hand, we know the United States is capable of it, and that security and stability in the region, and I would argue globally, is well within reach. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on in Iraq. Well, one of the impediments to the reinstitution of the currency was Prime Minister Maliki. It's not that he wasn't able to get the job done. In my opinion, he didn't want to get the job done. I think he was a plant by Iran, but now he's gone. Soudani is back. I'm not particularly a fan of Soudani, but it looks as though Soudani has read the tea leaves and he understands that his position as prime minister primarily is to husband this thing through and make sure that the citizens of Iraq have purchasing power and the ability to protect their country from Iran and other players that might try to get themselves involved. You have to remember that Iraq, geographically, is basically the gateway between the East and West. You remember the Silk Road that goes back quite a ways. But Iraq, arguably, per square mile, is the richest country in the world. So there are a lot of countries that would love to get their hands on Iraq. And fortunately, the Trump administration is assisting Iraq with their full sovereignty. We also have the coalition framework, which has been an impediment, largely due to the pro-Iranian officials there, but that group has been substantially weakened as well. So between a Sudani as the new prime minister replacing Maliki and some of the realignments going on in the coalition framework, we're finally moving in the right direction. Then we have the CBI of Iraq and the fiscal reforms having to do with de-dollarization and stopping the smuggling of the IQD out of the country. The country now holds in gold reserves over 145 tons of gold. Remember, these currencies' increase in value is based on something called Basel compliance. And one of the factors of Basel compliance is backing their currency, not as a fiat currency. A fiat currency is a currency that's based solely on the faith and credit of a country, not based on its known natural resources. But Iraq is, as I said, per square mile, one of the richest countries in the world. And 145 tons of gold is a lot of substantial backing for their currency. So all of these things considered, the momentum to the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar is really picking up speed. Now, the 2026 budget requires a plausible exchange rate. Currently, it's listed at 13.10, which of course is the program rate. But remember, this can be adjusted upward at any time, and it certainly will be. You can't really issue a budget and then substantially reduce the value of the currency, because then that budget has substantial deficits. But you can release a budget and then increase the value of your currency, which ends up providing a surplus. Even adjustments in the budget could be allowed because, again, you have a surplus. So if the current rate is 13.10, and we know that a Basel IV compliant rate is substantially higher than 13.10, we know that the budget can be issued and that the increase in the value of the currency based on the reinstitution of that currency can only assist with the budget and provide a surplus, not to mention the purchasing power that it provides for the citizens. Now, the increase in the value of the currency means that expenditures can be made to improve in their infrastructure, their industry, their agriculture, and their technology. So we're really on the cusp of this happening. Those of us that have currencies and our clients, some of them have just recently purchased currencies. Some have had dinar for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Some people have called and said, you know, I'm thinking about selling my currencies. I've held them for so long, nothing's going to happen. And my response to them is, well, you know when it's going to happen? 5 seconds after you sell your currency. So you've held on to them for this long, hold on to them for just a bit longer. So having said all of this, and I'm moving quickly today, in my opinion, the current value of 13.10 is not at all an accurate value. And we will, in the very near future, I'm talking weeks, in my opinion, see the Iraqi dinar substantially increase in value. At one point in time, I thought we'd see incremental increases, but I think those days are long gone. I think we're going to wake up one morning and see the dinar perhaps higher than the dollar, and that would be on the low end. But once that happens, it's going to move very rapidly to a Basel compliant rate. The Iraqi dinar, when it went into a program rate decades ago, was at 322. the country will be substantially better off, not even factoring in 20 years of inflation. So 322 to me seems like a very conservative value, current value, Basel IV compliant value for the IQD. So you can do the math. You know how much currency you purchased, and you know what that currency would be worth at $3.22. And again, to me, that's the floor for what we can achieve. Now, there will be individuals that will run to the bank with their hair on fire and exchange their currency, and that's fine. There will be individuals that will exchange a substantial portion of it and then hold a balance with the anticipation of it increasing even further. There will be individuals, higher risk individuals, that will see 322 and they won't even flinch. They'll just wait. They'll be expecting a higher number. Remember, Shabibi, who was the official years ago, stipulated that in his opinion, doing his numbers, he thought the dinar would easily be worth more than $5. I'm in agreement with that. Just velocity alone should take it over $5. But again, I'd rather deal with 322. That's, again, the rate that it went to a program rate, and that's certainly, given the information that I've just provided, been a low expectation for what we can expect. So what's going to happen now in Iraq? We're going to witness the government reforms. We're going to see rapid CBI operations. We're going to see Middle East trade. That's another thing that is a tell for the reinstitution, the fact that Mideastern countries and other countries all of a sudden want to begin trade with Iraq. And that's because they've done the math, and in their calculations, they're anticipating the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar just about at any time, and I'm in agreement with that. So those of us that have purchased dinar, particularly those of us that have held it for some period of time and may very well have gone through periods where they thought, you know what, maybe I should just sell this, I could get at least what I paid for it. I won't have lost anything other than what I could have done with the money invested elsewhere. But for those of us that have held on for the long haul, I think we're going to be very well rewarded for that. Now, having said all of that, you're in an unusual position because you have an asset that you reasonably and understandably believe is going to increase substantially in value. In other words, you're going to receive a windfall profit. Now, individuals have established trusts, and that's what we are. We're a trust firm, have established trusts in order to protect their assets. But you have an advantageous situation. You have an asset that's basically off the grid. No one knows you possess dinar unless you tell them, because they're virtually worthless. But if you have an asset that you think is going to appreciate substantially in value, it would behoove you, for a number of reasons, to place that asset in trust prior to its revaluation. And I use the term revaluation because we're talking about currencies. Now, Trusts Unlimited is headed by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's a nationally known author and estate planner. He has written this trust specifically for dinarians, specifically for the scenario of individuals that possess an asset that they believe will increase substantially in value. I was fortunate enough to come to work for Trusts Unlimited some time ago. I hold degrees in political science, economics, and finance. I can't believe I'm saying this, but Bob Bly's been in practice for over 50 years, and I'm right behind him, about 48 years. So between the two of us, we have about 100 years experience working with trusts and or pre-valued currencies. And I can assure you that the trust product I'm going to discuss here briefly today is the best vehicle to protect your wealth. It's a self-settled asset protection trust package, and the benefits that it provides are not available with LLCs, with sub-S corporations, with family limited partnerships, or certainly not with revocable trusts. And I'm going to review those benefits with you. First benefit is privacy and anonymity, because by establishing this trust pre-RV, in addition to protecting your privacy and your anonymity, you're going to make it extremely difficult, if not impossible, for anyone to successfully sue you. Frivolous lawsuits are out the window. And one of the reasons people are not even going to consider suits is because, once again, you're off the grid. They don't know what's in that trust. It's not as though you had substantial amounts of wealth that got transferred to the trust. There's a record of that. But when you transfer what is in essence worthless asset like these currencies to the trust, and they subsequently reinstitute and revalue, you have that wealth. You have the ability to buy, sell, use, consume, destroy that wealth. The same benefits you would have outside of the trust. But the difference is it's protected, and no one knows that you have access to that wealth. Remember, you don't own it. You're the beneficiary of that trust. You're the sole beneficiary of that trust, but no one knows what's in that trust. Second benefit is you're going to avoid IRS scrutiny, because by establishing this trust pre-RV, you're going to significantly avoid the possibility of an audit. And any such audit would be confined to the year in which the RV occurred. In other words, the IRS moves quickly. They like the low-hanging fruit. They don't go after sophisticated trusts. So you have this currency. It's a pre-valued currency. It's worth next to nothing. You transfer it to the trust. It revalues. That does not affect your personal tax return because that gain was within the trust. And because it's a rather sophisticated trust package, the IRS tends to avoid those audits because they're very time-consuming. But even if they decide to audit the trust, it's very easy to explain. You personally purchased pre-valued currencies. You transferred them to the trust before they reinstituted. The reinstitution occurred within the trust, and that's where the wealth came from. Very simple thing to explain to the IRS. The third reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because it's going to allow you to avoid gift taxes with pre-RV gifting. Because by gifting pre-RV currencies to friends and family through the trust, you're going to avoid a federal gift tax, because the pre-RV gift value is below the threshold for a taxable federal gift. But in addition to that, you still retain control of the asset. So you gift the currency to our gift subtrust, one of the trust's subtrusts within the package. So you're making gifts to family and friends. You're making gifts of pre-RV currencies, which are below the threshold for you having to pay a gift tax. Then the currency revalues within the gift subtrust for the benefit of those that you gifted. So they're going to get 100 cents on a dollar, and you are not going to have to pay a tax on the post-RV gift because you made the gift pre-RV. The fourth benefit of this trust package is going to allow you to avoid probate and the federal estate tax. So your trust will bypass the cost and delay of probate, making all inheritance privately and immediately available to your heirs. It also means that you will be able to avoid the federal gift tax. In other words, once again, you gave pre-RV currencies worth next to nothing through your gift subtrust to family and friends, and when the currency revalues, you will have control of that money for their benefit because it was gifted to them through the trust. And because it was gifted through the trust, you're going to avoid the federal estate tax. The federal estate tax is the tax that occurs when you gift assets and they change hands. But remember, the pre-RV currency was given or gifted to the gift subtrust. Once it revalues for the benefit of the named beneficiaries, ownership doesn't change hands. Because ownership doesn't change hands, there is no federal estate tax. And just to give you an idea of how much money you're saving, the federal estate tax can be as much as 55% of your entire estate, in excess of $12 million. So you purchase the currency for next to nothing. You gift a portion of that to family and friends through the gift sub-trust. When the currencies revalue, the money post-RV values are there for the benefit of the individuals that you've named in that gift sub-trust. And there is no federal or gift tax because the currencies were gifted pre-RV. The last and most important benefit is the preemptive asset protection, because by placing your pre-RV currencies in trust, only the value of those currencies at the time of the transfer would ever be subject to civil suit. And by placing each individual asset you control in its own separate subtrust, you will be able to limit any potential post-RV suits to the one asset in question in one of those subtrusts. So this trust provides privacy and anonymity, tax avoidance, gift tax avoidance, the avoidance of probate and the federal estate tax, and makes it virtually impossible for anyone to sue you because it's a blind suit. They don't know what's in the trust. They're going to have to win the lawsuit in order to determine what they might get pursuant to winning a lawsuit. So if you have the currencies, if you've established the trust, and you've pretty much behaved yourself, you're absolutely impenetrable. And this is where we find ourselves today. So for those of us that have had currencies for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, we're on the threshold of something, frankly, that a lot of people did not think was possible. I myself got involved in this because I was a kind of a junior member of a group way back when they purchased the Kuwaiti dinar. Now, the Kuwaiti dinar reinstituted. I made more money on that deal than I have in any other deal in my lifetime. But the money that I made on that transaction was, for lack of a better term, chump change compared to what I and the rest of us are looking at today. I've discussed on numerous calls, I've gone into excruciating detail how it's possible to make a $1,000 investment that could be worth $1 million, $3.25 million, $5 million. But it's absolutely possible. As a matter of fact, it's damn near close, in my opinion, to a mathematical certainty. So the establishment of a preemptive asset protection trust is the last piece of the puzzle. You stumbled across an investment. You made what investments you could at the time. You've patiently waited for that investment to come to fruition. Along the way, you were of the mind that this thing was one day going to pay off. And so you added one layer of protection by placing that asset in trust. And if you've done so, certainly if you haven't done so, but if you've done so, you're in a very, very good position because this long ride's just about over. Now, I strongly suggest that those of you that have been kind enough to listen to this call take one more step. Contact us to get our initial no-obligation informational package. It does contain everything you need if you wish to proceed with the establishment of your trust package, but you're under no obligation to do so. Review the package. Contact us if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you. Again, there's no fee and no obligation involved there, but if you decide to proceed, everything you need is included in the package. I'm going to go to the Q&A in just a moment, but before I do want to give you our contact information. If you would like to get our initial no-obligation informational package, you can request that by email or by phone. Our email address is trusts with an S, unlimited LLC @gmail.com. That's trusts with an S, unlimited LLC @gmail.com. And our phone service is 307-274-4122. That's 307-274-4122. contact us by email or phone. We'll get our trust package out to you as quickly as I can. That brings me to one other point before we go to a Q&A. We have been absolutely inundated with calls. I probably have, without exaggeration, over 100 people to contact. And after this call, I'm going to be on the phone all day. I'm going to be on the phone all day tomorrow. I'm going to be on the phone all day Friday. I'll be responding to phone calls and emails. That's all I'm going to do. I apologize for the tardiness of getting back to some of you, but we're literally doing the best that we can. Obviously, I have to spend some time preparing for these calls, and I've tried to distill the information as much as possible and reduce hours of research to literally about 30 minutes. But again, as soon as this call is over, I will be on the phone and on the emails responding to each and every one of you just as quickly as I can. So having stated that, let's go to our Q&A here. If I can get this thing to work. Okay, and while I'm waiting for any potential questions, once again, our contact information is as follows. Our email address is trusts with an S, Unlimited LLC @gmail.com, and our phone service is 307-274-4122. Well, we do have a few people in the call here. Our first in the queue, our first caller is area code 347. That's 347. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. I heard that Iraq was, instead of going through the Persian Gulf, they're gonna ship the oil through Turkey, I guess, through a pipeline or some other measure. Have you heard about that?
Yes, there's been some talk about that. Their concern is, of course, the issues with regard to Iran. I think that the Trump administration is putting the finishing touches on Iran's plan in the Persian Gulf and in the Straits of Hormuz. So certainly they have a number of ways they can transport oil, and they'd rather have both ways, but they'll do what they need to do. In my opinion, I think in the not-too-distant future, the Strait is going to be wide open because I think Trump's going to make sure that that's the case.
Okay. Now, do you think there's going to be a long enough peace for Iraq to actually revalue their currency?
Yes, I do. And I think that Iran is going to enter a completely new phase. It's going to start with absolute chaos because Trump has eliminated much of their leadership and the rest of it's in hiding. Iraq is not going to be deterred in my opinion, going to be deterred any longer. There may be other issues in country that need to be dealt with, but I think the issue of Iran is pretty much over.
Okay, but do you think Iran, do you think they'll, the other terrorists or whatever network connected to Iran, do you think they'll do terrorist attacks throughout the Middle East after this is officially over?
Oh, yeah, they're going to try. They're going to try to. Yes, I understand. That is always going to be with us. There's always going to be a small section of the radical Islamic fascists that basically hate everyone else. They're always going to be with us. The issue is whether President Trump and his administration is going to do what's necessary to ensure that the reinstitution and the revaluation globally of the Iraqi dinar occurs. And I say the answer to that is yes, not only for the global benefits, but also, the United States Treasury holds, I think, last I heard, 4 trillion dinars. So there are, domestic reasons why we want this done as well. And that's a very strong motivation for the Trump administration. Okay. I think everything Iran does, they're going to pay dearly for. They're slow learners. They're 12th Imamers. They're radical Shia. So how can I say this? They're not going to do the right thing for the right reason, but they're going to be compelled to do the right thing for the wrong reason, sheer naked force.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Bye-bye. Our next caller is area code 301. That's 301. Go ahead.
Hi, Jim. It's Larry from Maryland.
Yes, sir.
Question. Once this revaluation happens and we move forward, at this point with the current administration, do we need to worry about the digital dollar, or has that been, what is the status of the digital currency with this administration?
That's a good question. I haven't looked into it most recently. My understanding is the Trump administration is not thrilled with it. My concern really is the tax issue. For example, if this thing were to happen, if this reinstitution were to happen in the month of March, of course, taxes would be due April 15th. And so we'd have to really move because we'd have to go to the bank. We'd have to negotiate our exchange. The money would have to be available, certainly for personal expenditures, but for taxes as well. And in my opinion, I think Trump wants to change the tax status of this transaction. So every time we get to the end of a quarter, especially now with things moving in the right direction, we have to pay a close attention to the tax issue because that's the other issue. You go to the bank, you do your exchange, the bank's going to try to might try to put a 20-day hold on your money. And, of course, the first thing you're going to say when you go to the bank before we continue, in order for me to do this exchange, the money's going to have to be liquid so that I can pay income taxes. So if there's going to be a liquidity problem, I'm just going to have to go to another bank because it's not even a matter of the rate. You're looking at a 55% tax. Some people think it's going to be a cap gain tax. I certainly hope that's the case. But the way we read the code, it's ordinary income, and so that's 55 cents, not counting the surtax, and so we're going to have our liquidity. But that's a problem I don't mind dealing with because the only reason that problem exists is because we're going to the bank to exchange our currency. But that's next up is the tax issue.
And then if we're close enough, were you going to be, as much as it can be known, getting a list of banks that will now be dealing in the dinar? I mean,
we're going to do two things. We're going to provide to the best of our ability the banks and which ones we suggest you go to, and this is the attorneys. We're going to be dealing with the tax issue as well. I don't think this is going to happen, but suppose hypothetically the taxes were due on April 15th and the money was in the bank, but the bank's saying you don't have access to those funds. I don't see how the government in good conscience could charge us penalties to pay a tax because the bank won't release the funds. They're sitting on the funds. I don't think that would happen. And again, I think we have the right administration to make sure that doesn't happen to us. But again, that's a much better problem than sitting here twiddling our thumbs waiting for this thing to happen.
And then I guess right now it seems like most banks won't acknowledge the dinar. Will they do a massive turnaround once it revalues, and then we'll suddenly see which ones we can actually go to?
Actually, I didn't want to get into that, but I'm getting, I'm in contact with a couple of banks. We even have some bank officials that have our trust, and I'm getting the idea that they're aware of what's going on in Iraq, and they're aware of the possibility that the currency could reinstitute and revalue globally. What I'm not hearing anymore is, oh, that's a scam, don't pay any attention to that. I'm getting more, well, I don't know, or the bank has mentioned that there are certain currencies that could reinstitute. So I'm seeing a little bit of a change of attitude there. And, it's not really something that should tell us that it's going to happen. But it is good news in the sense that even people at the bank are beginning to realize, hey, you know what, this thing could be for real. So, and again, we have people in banks that are dinarians that have our trust. So It's entirely possible that the banks say one thing for public consumption and say other things to their large investor, people with large accounts at banks. So once again, everything is subtly moving in the right direction.
It's sort of the same principle as the government of Iraq is never going to announce ahead of time. They're just going to announce when it happens. Like right now, it's
right.
The same idea. But that's actually what you're seeing is you're seeing that happen at the banks.
Well, I guess with Iraq, they're not going to come out and give us a date and a rate, and the banks are not going to come out. And remember, what is it? Less than 1% of people have dinar. So from the bank's perspective, that's such a small sliver of their business. Certainly, if it happens, that's going to change dramatically, and then the banks are going to be falling all over themselves to try to offer all kinds of perks to get people. I mean, I could envision banks you could go to their website, or if you email or whatever it is, and all of a sudden they're saying, hey, if you were an individual that have Iraqi dinar or some of these other currencies, we're right there with you. Come on in. We have all these bells and whistles for you. So they're banks. They're going to change their tune overnight.
Right. And one more piece that it should be happening sometime soon.
Well, I tell you, the people that are really going to be upset are the employees of the bank that have been told for years that this is a scam. Don't waste your time, and then they're sitting there all day when people are coming in, to exchange their currency. They're not going to be happy. But
thank you, Jim. Thank you.
Certainly. All right. Bye now. Our next caller is area code 509. That's 509. Go ahead.
Well, hello there, Jim. This is Art in the left coast, Washington State.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I was just checking, checking the pulse with the advent of the reinstitution. We have 10 trusts with the package. Of course, one of those are the asset management trust, the banking account, and then a lot of folks will be, turning their vehicles, their homes, and what have you into trust, and then purchasing additional properties and sort of thing. We've talked about it, but it hasn't really been solidified from what I recall in regards to obtaining additional trusts, and how much would it be for each additional trust following the RV?
Okay. All right. Well, let me explain the package in just a little more detail. We have the master trust, which is control of all of the trusts within the package. And that's the trust that also has bank accounts and investment accounts. We also have the optional gift subtrust. That trust is established solely from individuals that are gifting currency to family and friends, and for whatever reason feel the need to control the post-RV proceeds for the benefit of that recipient. And then we have 8 additional initial subtrusts to hold assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. Now, we can add subtrusts as needed in the future. So some individuals, if they plan on selling their home, I would not recommend they put their home in a subtrust and then put their new home in a subtrust. Just sell, if you're going to sell an asset, just, put it on the market, sell it. And then when you purchase a new home or a car or whatever, then that goes into a subtrust to be protected by the trust package. But the critical thing is to establish the trust pre-RV and assign all of your pre-valued currencies to that trust. That's what ensures that you're completely and totally off the grid. No one knows that you possess this wealth. You are now the beneficiary of that wealth through the trust, which provides privacy and asset protection unavailable to a private citizen or through an asset like an LLC, a sub-S corporation. Those entities have benefits, but not when it comes to this type of asset protection. So you're in an advantageous position if you can get the currencies in trust before it revalues for all of the reasons I just stated.
Okay, for those the currencies we've had transferred over, you don't have to, in the trust makeup, as far as transferring that in the document, listing the currency and the amount, correct? Just the fact that you have this currency and that currency.
Basically, the assignment form says any and all pre-valued currencies that I currently or subsequently should possess are hereby assigned to the trust. And then there's a space where you just list the pre-valued currencies you have. That's all you need to do. So,
right. Okay.
If you had $1 million dinar, you purchased our trust, but before the revaluation you purchased another $9 million, it's covered by that assignment form. You go to the bank, you do the exchange. The USD will then go into the master trust bank account, and then as you purchase additional items, you purchase a home, a car, whatever, when you go to closing for that or purchase that item, the title is the name of that sub-trust, not you personally, and that way everything's protected.
Gotcha. Okay, that's what I was tracking with that. And have you heard, you may not have the ability to because you're so busy like a rat in a rain barrel, but there's a lady by the name of Melanie Hines that gives updates daily on the status of the Iraq dinar. She touches a little bit on the dong as well, but mostly dinar. And she's indicated that the Forex has basically a paper that's been received that lists the value of the dinar like 481.01 that is in kind of the back recesses, however you want to call it, until once that RV takes place, that's how much it will be worth. Have you heard anything about that? Sounds kind of query to me.
Yeah, first of all, I've always stated that I thought the value of the dinar, even initially, will be substantially higher than 322. I hear things like this all the time. I choose not to discuss them because that's really not. Whether it's true or not is irrelevant to me. It's not, in my view, it's not necessary. What's necessary is that individuals understand that they hold an asset with substantial leverage, and they purchase that asset because they believe that it's going to increase in value substantially. And if you have that asset, and if you believe that, the next step is to assign that asset to the trust before the event. In that way, it provides all of the benefits that I described here this afternoon.
All right. Sounds good. I'm on track with you. I've been listening to you for, not too long after boots on the ground. So
we started this
thank you,
young man.
Well, we've all gone through the woods, and we're hopefully coming out to the valley.
Actually, and the reason I even got involved in this as an investor, and then of course working with Trusts Unlimited, is many years ago as a young man, I was just doing financial planning, and I did have a handful of very wealthy clients. And I noticed some conversation, things they mentioned to me or to each other when we were together about their pre-valued currencies. And so I started to ask them, a lot of questions. And I was not involved in international currencies and arbitrages and all of that stuff.
Right.
But they were invested in the Kuwaiti dinar. So at the time, I had a wife, I had 4 children, I didn't have a lot of money, but these guys were very, very wealthy individuals. So what little I had, I invested, and that's still to date the best single profit on an investment I've ever made. So
you got your money back.
well, yeah, and then some. I made over 1,000% profit in under 30 days.
Right.
So, my thing was, my God, there's a whole thing going on out there I'm unaware of. But of course, these are higher risk investments, longer term. But when I stumbled across the Iraqi dinar, all the bells and whistles went off, and I said, "Oh my God, this is Kuwait times 10. It's more like Kuwait times 1,000."
Right.
So, so this is where we are today. And the trust product that we are marketing for denarians, with as time goes on, I really realize as people ask questions, and sometimes I can't answer them. I go back to the attorney, and they explain a specific benefit and why. I mean, it's just amazing what an instrument this trust package is. And conversations people are going to have is after this is over, because a lot of people have currencies, they know each other. One's going to have a trust like ours. One's going to have some, inferior trust. And someone's going to do nothing. And the difference between those that have our trust and those that don't, in terms of everything, in terms of their privacy, in terms of their asset protection, in terms of operations, certainly in terms of litigation and all, it's just going to be night and day. It really is. And I'm so fortunate that I stumbled across the Iraqi dinar, and then I stumbled across Robert Bly and his firm. And, I just couldn't feel better for my, I'm older now, but now I'm thinking about my wife and my kids and even grandchildren. So I look at the trust as an investment as well, because I can do things with the trust that I can't do outside of the trust. And, of course, the last thing is people might say, hey, Jim George, wow, he must be doing really, really well. He's living large. But the difference is they have absolutely no way of determining what I own. How I got it, how I use it. Remember, I can buy, sell, use, consume, and destroy in the trust just as I can as an individual, but as an individual, I don't have all of the benefits of the trust. And there are some other tax deferral benefits, which I'm not even supposed to get into, so I'm not going to now. Those are post-RV discussions, and our attorneys think that we may need to send out some private letter rulings to confirm some things. But what I'm being told is there are some substantial tax benefits available to us post-RV as well, but that's a discussion the day after the RI of the dinar.
Yeah, that's an exciting letter to be looking forward to receiving. Just real quick, I'll end with this. While you were talking about the type of people that will or will not have anything to do with the RV, whichever the currency, I should say, it's tantamount to the parables of seed that throw seed out in good soil, poor soil, and rock. It's the same thing.
Yeah. We were given dead seed, and it turns out it's live.
Yeah. All righty, my friend. You take care. God bless you, and you have a great day. And hopefully the next person get up on there.
Thanks a lot. You as well. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Okay, our next caller is area code 760. That's 760. Go.
Hey, Jim. How you doing?
Oh, I'm fine. How are you, sir?
Hey, this is Sherman from California.
Yes, sir.
I had to rewrite my. I wanted to change my trustee, and I had to do a rewrite, and I was still waiting to hear from you, so I can make it.
Okay, let's just a sec. I'm going to write this down. I'm going to look into that as soon as this call's over, and I'll get back to you. Just give me 1 sec here. Okay, 760. Okay, I've got your phone number here. I'm going to go ahead and talk to the paralegals, and I'll get right back to you this afternoon, my friend. All right?
All right, Jim. That was my concern. That's all I needed. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I'm on it. Take care.
Have a great day.
All right, bye-bye now. I will say this. Our turnaround time is unfortunately longer than it used to be, not only because over the years we've just got more clients, but because of recent, the news has been good enough in the Middle East that a lot of people, it's triggered a lot of people to say, okay, now, I've been kind of dragging my feet. Now I'm going to go ahead and call Trusts Unlimited and get the process of establishing my trust started. So, and there goes my phone again. Okay, let's see. Our next caller is, let me make sure I get this right, is 763. That's area code 763. Go ahead.
Mr. Jim, Monty calling from the embarrassing, terrible state of Minnesota. How are you doing today?
Okay. It's a beautiful state, but you got some issues up there. I agree.
Yeah. I share your thoughts. I know, obviously, we're focused on the dinar, which I have. I have a trust with you. Obviously, with the recent developments with Venezuela, I just wanted to get your viewpoint of, do you feel that could potentially be a sleeper investment for us down the road? I don't, obviously, nothing immediate.
Well, yes, Venezuela's lost its tyrant, but it still possesses a ton of oil. And another country similar would be Vietnam. So there's a few countries, there's some other countries too, but after the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar, many of our clients still have some of these other currencies and may start taking a portion of their windfall and investing, because we're shifting away from fiat currencies to Basel compliant currencies. Countries that understand that are beginning to really develop, get their natural resources to market, because that increases the value of their currency against other currencies. That's important for trade. When you're a country with a unless you're China and you're abusing the process, you want to have a viable currency so that you can actively trade with other countries. So there are other currencies in South America, but the dong is another one, in addition to Venezuela, that have real potential, and they're up and coming. So, I agree. That's a currency I don't have, but if the revaluation were to happen, because I've got a lot invested there, if the revaluation of the dinar, the dong were to happen now, Venezuela is one of the countries I'd be looking to invest in, simply because of what's been happening of late.
Great. Yeah, I just purchased some the other day. Just wanted to get your viewpoints. Again, like everyone else on this call, we've been in this roller coaster ride for, me personally, but probably a lot too, many years. So we just want to circle third base here and reach home plate here like everyone else. So thank you.
However long we have been involved in this, when this does occur, it will have been well worth the wait. There's nothing else we could have done with our money in the interim to come up with what we're going to end up with here. And also, we have the right administration. They are absolutely hell-bent on getting this done. In my opinion, this is just my opinion, I think one of the reasons that the Trump administration is annihilating Iran's nuclear capability is because they want to free up Iraq to reinstitute. And one of the reasons they want to free up Iraq to reinstitute ASAP is because the conversion of that currency held by the Treasury to USD means Trump has a lot of power. He has power for the elections that are coming up. He has the power to audit the Fed. A lot of people say, well, he can use a lot of that money to substantially reduce our national debt, which, of course, it would do, and it would reduce the interest that the federal government pays on that debt, which reduces the need to increase our taxes. But I don't think that's what Trump's angle is. I think before Trump pays a dollar of that off, he's going to want to do an audit of the Fed. And I really honestly think that's one of the reasons why they hate him, on the left, and want to get rid of him, because they've operated for over 100 years with the central bank system. It's a debt scenario, and Trump wants to end all of that. That, in my opinion, that's really why they don't like the guy, because they don't want him snooping around the Federal Reserve, the central bank system, and that's exactly what I think he intends on doing. About 5 seconds after the dinar and some of these other currencies reinstitute, because the Treasury's holding all of that money, and we're not going to pay down the debt that, in his opinion, we technically may not even owe. So it's going to get really, really interesting on a lot of levels, not just personal.
This may be getting into the weeds just a tick, you know me, but could the argument be said with the federal government printing money out of thin air that that is not part of the national debt that we owe?
Well, it is when they print the money, it is. That whole system has to change.
Okay.
See, that's what fiat money is. It's a Federal Reserve where that money comes from, and they're lending it to us. They're saying, this is our money, you need money, so we're going to lend it to you. I think it's Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution says we can create a people's money, debt-free. We don't need to borrow the money from the Federal Reserve or the guy next door. The federal government, through the people who elect the federal government, can create our own currency debt-free, and we don't have to pay anybody. Now, the Federal Reserve System globally has been around for hundreds of years. They've become very, very wealthy, a very small group of people, and they're not going to just willy-nilly hand it over. It's going to take a strong arm like someone like Trump to do it.
Yeah.
But I really think – I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said interesting. I appreciate your thought on that. Also, you did mention Iran. I suppose, would it be safe to say you could put Iran's rials in the same category as Venezuela for potentially down the road?
That's probably a little higher risk. We don't know what's going to happen in Iran, but one of the reasons Iran is involved in Iraq is because Iran is extremely mountainous. It's very, very difficult to mine. Iraq, on the other hand, is in that Tigris-Euphrates River Delta. Thousands of years, all that silt has been flowing through there. All the precious metals, industrial metals, oil, all that's right there. And Iran is, it's just like your next door neighbor struck oil, and you're living right next door. You got nothing but rock. This guy's got oil, and that's also. Aside from the fact that they're radical 12th Imam or Shia, I don't know if I said it. If you really want to understand where these psychotics are coming from, Google the 12th Imamer, and you will understand the bizarre, this in my opinion, the bizarre theology of the 12th Imam or Shia. Not all Shia are 12th Imamers, and not all Muslim are Shia, obviously. But the group running Iran, who Trump is picking off one at a time, if you understand 12th Imamers, you'll understand where these people are coming from. I mean, they're killing their own people. Now they're bombing other nations that were even friendly to them. And in my opinion, Trump's doing the only thing he can do, absolutely decimate their military capability, and then hopefully the people will rise up and there'll be legitimate regime change. We can have peace in the Middle East. But it's going to come with or without them voluntarily, because Trump's basically said, we've dealt with 20 years of your nonsense. Time is up.
Yeah.
And that's
awesome.
That's good for us too. What do we want? We need security and stability. Well, that necessarily requires a modicum of peace in the Middle East, and the problem's been Iran.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If we get clear up Iran, I think that's going to initiate a lot of positive things for our investment.
Yeah, this is going to be a very, very interesting year. And for those of us that have had the forethought to purchase the dinar and some of these other currencies and the patience to hold on to them, I think we're going to have a very good year.
Yep. Let's hope.
Okay.
We've been saying this for many, many years, and it seems like the end keeps on getting punted down, but I'm openly optimistic and share the same thought, Jim. Thank you. Okay,
you take care. Bye-bye now. Our next caller is area code 210. That's 210. Go ahead.
Jim, it's Ted in Texas. I have a question on my trust. I have a. You want to call me back? You want me to ask you?
Oh, absolutely. Hold on. Yes. I was just about to say, you sure you want to discuss it now? But, okay, I'm writing your number down here. This is the number you want me to call, the one you're on now?
Yeah.
Well, that's the only one I had. Okay. Okay, I've got the number, and I will give you a call. I can't say I'll call you right away, but you will definitely hear from me this afternoon, sir. Okay?
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Certainly. Bye-bye now. Well, that was our last caller for this afternoon. Again, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to listen to this call. We seem to be in a very good place despite some of the chaos in the Middle East. I'm speaking specifically in terms of our investment in the Iraqi dinar and, of course, some of the other currencies. The things we discussed are of interest. I strongly suggest you contact to get our initial no-obligation informational package. You will learn a lot from this package, and if you decide to proceed with the establishment of your trust, you can just contact us by email or phone, and we'll be happy to initiate the process. Once again, our email address is trusts with an S, unlimited, LLC @gmail.com, and our phone service is 307-274-4122. Contact us by email or phone. We'll get back to you right away and to get started with the establishment of your trust, and we'll help you in every way that we possibly can. Thanks so much for listening, folks. Of course, our next call is scheduled for next Wednesday. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. But failing that, we'll be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Again, thanks so much for listening. Well, we got more people coming into our queue here. Let me see. The first one here have number area code 347. That's 347. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think I was the first one.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. It came back up as another caller. My bad. Bye-bye now. Okay, everyone. I guess there's a little glitch here. The numbers came back up. That's all. Confused me for a moment. But we'll be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Have a great week, everyone. God bless.